The question about responsibility is complicated and is not just twofold, but I guess I'll talk about two things. Yeah, the society actually does have a responsibility to take care of the people that are within the society. The police are the ultimate example of that. They are actually the arm that is meant to serve and protect. That is their responsibility. That's what they're paid for. That's what politicians are elected for, to take care of the individuals inside of the society that they govern. So it is their responsibility. And if they're not taking up that responsibility, it's up to the people who elected them or who pay their salaries to ensure that they're doing the job that they're tasked to do. At the same time, I do think it's important for people in the community to take responsibility for themselves, but not at the cost of alleviating the responsibility of the society that's meant to take care of its citizens. And we're in a society, which means there are a variety of different people who are responsible for a variety of different things. But a society is a social fabric. It's not a singular thing. It's not, I just take care of myself. It's really about us taking care of each other. So that includes members of the community, that includes education system, that includes the police, that includes, the teachers, that includes the people that pick up the garbage, that includes the CEOs of the companies, that includes the people that sweep the streets, that includes the police, that includes my mother, it includes everybody, and I think too often the argument becomes a binary argument where it's just like us and them, and it's really not us and them. It's that we're supposed to have a responsibility for each other, and to try to go back and forth between two poles in the same argument it's useless, because it's not the way that society is at least supposed to operate. I think oftentimes people reduce hip-hop into a singular thing. Like what's happening in these places it's usually being committed by individuals. It's not being committed by the hip-hop community. And so let's say in this incident with Drake that happened, one person committed an act that obviously, we don't support the act, and all the 4,000 people in the venue are blamed for the act of one person, And I think that's just super reductionist. That's as simple as saying all white people are this, or all black people are that, or all women are this, or all men are that. Like, human beings are way more complicated than that, And so I think it's important for people that are outside of the community, who reduce the community down to one particular event or the acts of one particular individual, to understand what's actually happening, you know what I mean? And they had the same issues with punk rock. It's not like punk rock didn't have those issues. These are youth movements, and these are movements that are really fundamentally about rebellion, and rebellion against what? Authority, And young people do crazy shit sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's more extreme, sometimes it's less extreme, you know what I mean? But you can find that anywhere. You can go to, you can go to Regina and find the same thing. But when people are outside of a community, they have less ability to differentiate between the elements and the nuances of that particular community. And so they lump everything into one thing, which is a natural human tendency, but it's also called a stereotype, So yeah, hip-hop has some problems with violence, but so does Toronto, you know what I mean? So does different forms of cultural expression. We could go down a whole list, But the question is, what is creating the violence is the real question. What is the reason why an individual would need to be in the club pulling triggers on people? What does that person not have that they would have to be in that situation? Do they not have access to certain types of resources? Do they not have access to a certain type of family structure? Do they not have access to a certain sort of education? Our dropout rate is 50% in Toronto. And if you drop out of high school, what's your potential opportunity to do other things in the society that are productive? People usually look at the person who like pulled the trigger, but that incident and the person behind that incident is a result of the environment that they are inside of. And if you want to address the pulling of a trigger, you have to address the thing that created the pulling of that trigger, you know? And if you don't address that, then more things will continue to happen, you know? It's similar to, like, don't get me started, but it's like similar to like the war on terror, you know? Like at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, like people speak about suicide bombers in Israel, let's say. But then they won't speak about the cause of why those individuals who have been wholly marginalized and controlled for as long as that conflict has been going on, why it is that they are fighting against that particular thing, which is apartheid, you know? The same people that experienced World War II somehow don't see the link between the marginalization of an entire community, you know, and the response to that marginalization. And so, yeah, I just think a lot of these issues are a lot more nuanced than people give them credit for. And at the end of the day, to try to get out of like binary thinking and to be able to look at the issue in a more nuanced way and not reduce entire communities to single individuals and particular actions. Remedies. I think organizing and strategizing. I know that's very vague, but like organizing and strategizing. Learning and understanding the situation that you're in, you know. I speak to artists a lot, and I find that a lot of artists don't necessarily understand the full extent of the industry that they seem to want to be involved in. I don't even understand it, you know. But also I think which I touched on before, I think like we need to be able to build things, like build our own things and retain ownership and control of those things. In the same way that, you know, anybody who starts a business retains ownership of that business, or the metaphor I used before was buying a house. Like, if you buy a house, the assumption is that you can control what happens within the walls of that house. Yeah, I think building is really the primary thing. That if you're looking for a company to distribute your music and they're not giving you access to their network of distribution, what says that you can't organize and strategize around building a network that is productive for you? And you could say that for basically any of the other many things that are a part of the infrastructure of like music specifically. But that goes for anything. You can find my music at iankamau.bandcamp.com, and you follow me on Twitter at Ian Kamau, Instagram, and most of my other stuff is Ian Kamau, IANKAMAU.
Enjoy a state of affairs which, by any decent standard, they ought not to enjoy. I mean, you can imagine